Now, Aquarius, you guys seem to get this one a lot. So natural, authentic, real, and organic from Lee Vampire. But what worries me here is that you pulled vanity from chakra wisdom. But what I think is happening here, looking at the two, is that maybe for some of you, you are moving away from people who are more material focused, where you're becoming maybe a little bit more spiritual here. Now, when you look at natural, it does talk about, maybe identifying too much with ways of looking at yourself, whether it's through your job, your appearance, personality, things like that. It's basically telling you that you need to go beyond that and get back to who you really truly are. Now, vanity, though, from chakra wisdom is where, I feel like this is going to have to do with you getting away from people that may look at what you have rather than who you are, because they're more material focused. Now, vanity, some of the key ideas for this are self-doubt, living in illusion, power to change, lesser companions, and empty conversations. Now, those two stuck out the most for me, and they usually do when I see this card. I don't so much feel like this is you wanting more. I feel more like this has to do with you getting away from that kind of material-minded focus. Now, on the other hand, for some Aquarians, if you've been too focused on, your job, your money, your career, the material world, I think like you're done with that. You're getting back to a more natural state, which, I keep seeing this for you guys, like needing to get back to just, who you are, and being authentic, and not so much being worried about the material world. All right, Aquarius, here we go. Here's the energy coming through. Oh boy. So getting right to the point here, the Lovers. Now, this could be a relationship or this could be major life decisions. And when you're looking at the Lovers, there's two choices here. You're talking about taking the moral high ground or following temptation here. So for some of you, it may have to do with major life decisions. For others of you, this may have to do with a love situation. I think it's funny that you have Gemini front and center. All right, so in the past, oh, shit. All right, Aquarius, so in the past, maybe dealing with some heartbreak, some separation. This one bothers me just because of how painful it looks. I love the artwork in the deck, but this one's one of the more painful ones to look at. Now, for some of you, this could just be something that you're still thinking about. When I look at the Three of Swords and I see it as past energy, this is done with. You already know what this is about. For some of you, you're still looking for clarity through the situation, right? Like needing to get to the heart of the matter. But with the Lovers, for those of you that are dealing with a relationship issue, this is just talking about some of the pain from the past. Now, in the present, the Eight of Coins, and that feels a little bit better, but I worry about, what you're putting so much effort into, though, with the Three of Swords still being there. But now with the Eight of Coins, especially next to the Lovers, it's saying that you're willing to put in some effort here. And for some of you, if this does have to do with work or career, there may have been some setbacks, but I feel like right now you're still willing to, make the decision that's going to be right for you, right? And continue to put forth the effort. Now, for some of you, if this is having to do with a relationship, it just comes straight down to you're willing to still work at things. And that's it. It's not like you're willing to give up here. But then, I do worry about, too, with the Eight of Coins, how much effort you're continuing to put into, the painful things of the past, though, too. Future conditions. Yeah. So to me, looking at the Eight of Coins and then seeing the Seven of Coins here, you're looking at, where can we go from here? How can we continue to make things grow in a more positive way is what it feels like. Now, the Seven of Coins to me, I don't really see this so much as a waiting thing. I think that you're already seeing the results that you want, but you're more looking at, is this what you're wanting to see? Are you seeing the results of the efforts that you're putting in? You know, how do we continue to make things grow? How, you know, can we change things up? There may be a risk that's involved here in switching some things up. But I'm looking at you reevaluating a situation in terms of either a relationship or making a decision where there were setbacks in the past. And you're still putting forth the effort, but when you move into future conditions, are you seeing what you want to see out of this? Especially if you're busting your ass and putting a lot of effort in. You know, so here you're looking at, am I seeing what I want to see? How do I move forward? Oh, your best path to follow. You need to get out of, you know, and again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You know, be careful about how much effort you're putting into, you know, this Three of Swords and this past setback or heartbreak or whatever issues are going on. The Eight of Swords is suggesting a trap, a mental trap, being afraid to move forward. You know, so you may be reevaluating things, but if you're still stuck with the same mental patterns over what has happened in the past, it's hard to move away from this period. You know, it's just saying that you're locked in. You're locked into this situation, but you're doing it to yourself. This is a willing thing. You know, this isn't like the devil type energy, but I feel more like you are trapped mentally about, you know, some setbacks in the past. Like I keep hearing setbacks, you know, because you're still willing to put forth the effort here in making the right decisions, or needing to put the effort in a relationship, with the Lovers being front and center here. But again, with the Seven of Coins, is you're reevaluating things. You know, are you really seeing what you want out of this situation? In your environment, strength, right? Needing to pull on that reserve. It's great that we have strength and that we have the ability to tap into this. But my first question immediately is why? Why are you needing to pull on the reserve? Well, obviously because the Three of Swords is still a factor in how you're moving forward here. Strength is good, but it's telling you to deal with things in, you know, a gentle way. You don't want to get overly angry about things. You don't want to keep yourself trapped mentally. You know, you have the ability to move through whatever difficult situations are in your path. You know, dealing with things with patience and grace. You know, and that can be hard to do, especially with the way that I'm seeing it lined up here, you know. Whatever setbacks you faced, whether it's in a relationship or major life decisions, right? You have to deal with things in a way that is with patience and grace. You can't get overly angry. You can't get overly upset. But with the Eight of Coins being there, you're still willing to put forth the effort here, you know? Yeah, I'm telling you, right? Like patience and grace and patience, right? Patience, temperance, hopes and fears. Needing to have the patience to kind of go through this, you know, especially if you are trapped mentally. Now, for some of you, if this doesn't have to do with a relationship, it may just be the fact, oh, if I could talk right, I'm already having problems. The Eight of Swords. Underneath the Lovers, if you've been through heartbreak in the past, if you're looking at moving forward with wanting a relationship, the Eight of Swords can be talking about the mental trap that you're still in. And it's just something that you need to clear up. Are you putting your effort into moving forward, or are you putting it into constantly thinking about this? You know, strength is saying that either way, if you're dealing with working on a relationship, or you're working on your ability to make the right choices in love in your life, right? You need to deal with things with strength and patience, but a gentle force, right? You have the ability to go through whatever difficulties are in your path with strength being there. But again, there's a need for patience with temperance being there. And then not only that, but, you know, looking at temperance, there's a need here to, you know, kind of get control over what you're wanting, what you're desiring, getting that nice even flow between your thoughts and your emotions surrounding love and the major decisions you may be making, right? And then the outcome, wow. So for some of you, the The Four of Swords. For some of you, if these setbacks are still a persistent thing that you are unable to kind of deal with here, looking at the Eight of Swords, maybe you need to take some time for yourself to think about things. You know, with the Four of Swords, there's no communication. It's silence. It's needing some silence, needing some time to think for yourself and be by yourself. It's a little bit different than the Hermit. You know, I think for a lot of you, it's just the fact that you need some mental clarity, because I'm looking at sword energy, you know. You needing to have patience with a love situation, with the decisions you're making, especially if it has to do with work. You know, but again, you have the strength to carry on through this. You know, but I do think that the only way that you're going to be able to move forward is if you give yourself a break to really think about things, you know. That Eight of Swords, I don't know, it feels heavier to me than normal, you know. I've always said, take the blindfold off. Don't ever fear your path, right? Walk where you need to go. You know, deal with the pain as it comes. But there's not any guarantee here that you're going to be dealing with any more pain than what you're already trapped with. You know, but I do feel like, though, for some of you, you're going to have to take a time out. You're just going to have to take a break. Especially if you're dealing with a love situation here. Because you may not be seeing the results that you want to see, you know, through all the effort that you're putting through here. Because this is still a persistent thing, you know. Man, I don't know what the hell is going on this week, but I'm seeing a lot of the Lovers and a lot of the Four of Swords. You know, and it's not saying that a relationship needs to end, or, you know, the decisions that you make are going to end painfully. It's just needing to really think about things first. You know, kind of finding your oasis with the Four of Swords before you do anything major here, especially if you're not seeing the results that you want. All right, Aquarius, we're going to take a look at the soul trees to see what other messages there are for you guys. This one bothers me a little bit, just because that lingering pain of the Three of Swords. Adventure, sacral chakra, and new growth. And that's good to see, especially when it comes to your creative center, looking at the Eight of Coins and the Seven of Coins. But adventure, needing to go on an adventure, needing a new adventure, especially with the Three of Swords coming through. But then also here with the sacral chakra and new growth, you know, maybe a new adventure will get that chakra spinning. You know, new creativity, new growth in your creative center. And it looks good. I just think that for some of you, it's simply needing to take a new adventure here instead of being locked in with the things from the past that are still affecting you, right? And that new adventure, you know, that I feel like needs to come after you take some time for yourself. Like, seriously, I'm surprised that your card didn't show up for this. Right? Needing to do some healing. And needing to really think about things here before, you know, you put forth any more effort. Especially, again, if you're not seeing the results that you want. All right, Aquarius. I am going to ask you, just like I asked everybody else, in terms of the Oracle decks for love, would you guys like to see the Romance Angels or Whispers of Love? Or we can do one from both. So you guys tell me, which one do you want to see here? Rest, oh my God. Like, seriously, rest and relaxation is essential. We all have a fundamental need to take a break. Like, no shit. We know this. I'm telling you, you know, before you head off on a new adventure, just give yourself some time, right? So, religious factors. Your love life is influenced by your religious upbringing and spiritual path. Now, to me, when I see this card, I think that, you know, you are being connected with somebody based on your spiritual beliefs. Your spiritual path is going to lead you to the right partner. I don't think that religious factors should ever be an issue within a relationship, especially if you're happy with somebody. You know, but it could say that whoever you're with or whoever you're meeting may have the same spiritual path as you. But it's not bad. But, you know, again, right, like rest and relaxation, needing to take some time for yourself. And that's going to be the most important thing by the end of the week, I think, for some of you, especially if there's still this mental trap with this painful, painful Three of Swords.